Well, new controversy in the wake of U.S. troops burning some copies of Islam's holy book, the Koran, in Afghanistan. Thousands of Afghans filled the streets to protest again today, chanting "Death to America." This despite an apology from the U.S. president and other officials. Some saying there that the apologies have had no impact. NATO admitted earlier this week that soldiers had burned the books. They had been taken from a library at a detention facility adjoining a U.S. military base, reportedly after extremist messages were found written inside of some of the books. There was concern that they were being used to pass messages back and forth between terrorists. That is the claim, at least, that is now being investigated. Afghan President Hamid Karzai's office releasing a letter written from President Obama. This is a letter the White House did not want to release. Karzai did, and that letter reads, in quote, the following: "The error was inadvertent, I assure you, that we will take the appropriate steps to avoid any recurrence, to include holding accountable those responsible." Well, General Jack Keane is a four-star general and former Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. He is also a Fox News military analyst. General, I want to talk about the response to this, because there's no question that burning the Koran in Afghanistan is a severe and very controversial thing. That's clear. But why did we apologize, and were we right to do so?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we made a boneheaded, insensitive mistake dealing with this significant holy book representing one of the great religions of the world. I mean, all the holy books representing religions are very sensitive, but in the Quran is even more so for the Muslim people. So there's always going to be charged situation as a result of it. And make no mistake, I mean, the political agendas in Afghanistan are complex. All those people you see on the street there demonstrating, they're not all just reacting viscerally to something that they feel insulted about. There's stakeholders here that are trying to undermine Karzai's government. There's stakeholders on the street trying to undermine the United States of America. The president is trying to give Karzai a tool to help him defuse the situation. That's what the apology is all about. Yesterday, Karzai goes before the parliament and asks all the parliamentarians to help him with this situation, and quotes from the letter the president's statement. And obviously, he's using the president of the United States as leverage to accomplish what he's doing. Karzai is not the strongest leader we've ever dealt with, quite the contrary. He's a very mercurial figure, and at times it drives us nuts, you know, trying to keep him in the box. But frankly, he does need some help here, and the president, that's what he's trying to do, help him.
And Karzai now is calling for restraint in the wake of this. But as you point out, there may be other forces at play. And there's a question about whether this is being used by some forces in Afghanistan as propaganda, as just a reason to turn against Americans and you know, fuel the tide of anti-American sentiment that's felt over there.
Yeah, that's absolutely going on. It's an opportunity, as others have arisen in the past, to undermine the United States and NATO's efforts, and also to help weaken the authority and effectiveness of the Karzai government. That's part of what's taken place. And I'm not suggesting that there are not genuine Muslims on the street who feel insulted by this act, because in their mind it shows a lack of respect for them, and therefore they're willing to get out in the street. I think certainly there is a representation of that, but I think largely it's much more complicated than that.
But I think, you know, some Americans, they have a problem with this, General, because while they don't condone the burning of the Koran, they see all that we have done to help the Afghan people. They see our troops over there sacrificing blood and treasure. They see, you know, some people burn this Koran. We don't know the circumstances. There are reports that it was done to stop messaging. That's being investigated, not confirmed one way or the other. And then in response, one of the Afghan army members who we've trained reportedly unleashes against our guys, killing 2 Americans, and now we are apologizing to them. And Americans sitting here at home on their couches saying, What is going on? What is this for?
Well, I think there's separate events, and we should treat it that way. We've had over 70 Americans killed as a result of Afghan security people intentionally shooting at Americans. And they're obviously Taliban people who have infected the ranks of the security forces. And that's an issue that we've been dealing with, and General Allen and his command is working very hard on that. But, you know, in America, where we tolerate intentional abuse of our major symbols, to include religious symbols, American patriotic symbols, and actually write laws that permit the intentional abuse, it may be hard for us to understand why there's such a reaction like this. This burning of the Koran, for example, is getting more reaction from the Afghan people than when we kill unintentionally Afghan civilians. And you try to get your head around that, and it's difficult to do so. But you have to put yourself in their shoes and what this symbol means to them.
You know, maybe this is a clueless question, you'll tell me, General, but you look at all the good we've done over there, all the help that we've given to the Afghan people, and you know, you see the video all the time of our troops with their kids and so on. Does all of that mean nothing in the wake of an incident like this? Do they have no concept of, okay, there was a bad incident involving a couple of guys, that doesn't warrant thousands taking to the street and chanting death to America and unleashing fire? Granted, it hasn't been totally confirmed that that was somebody who was retaliating against our U.S. troops, but the circumstances seem to suggest it was a retaliation. Is there no big picture concept over there?
Look, you mentioned I've been in Afghanistan 4 times in the last 18 months, and most of the time I spend down at lower unit levels in villages. And the relationships that we Americans have, our troops, our civilians, even our contractors, you know, with the Afghan people is remarkable. We respect their customs, we respect their traditions, and as a result of that, we have forged close relationships with them based on mutual respect. I've seen it time and time again in the meals we eat with them, how they recreate with each other, and the things they do together to build better communities. That is the norm in Afghanistan. This, what we're viewing here, is by far the exception, and we should not let it distort what the norm is. I mean, I get a little frustrated, frankly, how much the media jumps on this incident, and there's very little reporting of the fact that we have turned the war around in Afghanistan. We're succeeding in Afghanistan in the south and southwest, and now we're starting to see it actually in the east. And there's not a lot of reporting about the most significant event that's taken place in Afghanistan, which is the turnaround of the war.
It's an important point. General Jack Keane, thank you so much for your expertise, sir.
Good seeing you, Megan.
See you soon.